Gender research for me is definitely not an add-on because it's something that I've been involved in since the early 1980s. Everybody says, yes, we want gender equality, but people are not thinking of the very specific, practical situation, the conditions that the women have to work with, it really specificities for women and how to deal with those things. It can be, in our organisation, a simple thing like if a woman has a baby, where does she do her breastfeeding? Huh? Now, that might not be such a big issue in Africa, where it's much more open to do breastfeeding, but there are also other issues in Africa with if there's training for women. How can a woman who has children, who has to take care of the house, go away for a 3-day training or a 5-day training somewhere? If you talk about agriculture in Africa, I mean, most agriculture in Africa has been done by women. And most of the work also in male-headed households, if you look to see who's taking care of the animals and who's working in the fields, in most of the cases, it is the women. And the women, you can't even say, are weaker than the men, probably. In many cases, they're just as strong as the men physically. Yeah. No, I think it's got more to do with perceptions. I think it's got a lot to do with original perceptions of people that came in with interventions in agriculture and were thinking that this is something for men, perhaps coming from countries in which, also in Europe, men were the ones who were making the decisions, although they weren't necessarily the ones doing all of the work. And this was more or less taken for granted when people started to come in and improve, develop agriculture. And that's one reason that I've really been trying to emphasize it's so important to make that picture obvious, to make the profile high of women in agriculture, women in livestock keeping, which of course is part of agriculture, and what they're achieving, what they're doing, so that people just don't automatically think if we're going to start up, let's say, dairy development scheme, that, yeah, you deal with the men.